They say blood is thicker than water. But what happens when your own sister steals your wedding dress, your fiancé, and your entire future while you're away? I'm about to show you what happens when the perfect sister underestimates the quiet one. If you've ever been the one who gave everything while everyone took, hit subscribe. This story gets better, I promise. And stick around till the end because the secret I'm about to reveal, it changes everything. My name is Claire Martinez, and for most of my life I've been invisible. Not physically, I mean emotionally. I was the daughter who faded into the background while everyone's eyes stayed fixed on my sister, Natalie. And honestly, for the longest time I didn't mind. Someone had to be the steady one, right? Someone had to hold things together when our world fell apart. I was 16 when Mom died. Breast cancer. It took her fast. 6 months from diagnosis to the funeral. Natalie was only 12, still a kid who needed her mother more than anything. Dad shut down completely. He went to work, came home, sat in his recliner, and stared at the TV without really watching it. He was there physically, but emotionally? He checked out the day we buried Mom. So I became the parent Natalie needed. I made her breakfast before school, helped with homework, attended parent-teacher conferences when Dad couldn't be bothered. I had a full scholarship to UCLA waiting for me. Communications major, all expenses paid. I deferred it for a year, then another year, and eventually, I just let it expire. Natalie needed stability. She needed someone to be there when she got home from school. She needed someone to remind her she was loved. I got a job in marketing at a small firm downtown. The pay wasn't great, but it was enough. Enough to keep the lights on. Enough to make sure Natalie had everything she needed. New clothes for school? I handled it. Field trip fees covered. When she wanted to join the dance team freshman year and the uniform cost $300, I picked up extra freelance work for 2 months to make it happen. Natalie bloomed in high school. She was everything I wasn't. Effortlessly beautiful, naturally charming, the kind of girl who walked into a room and made everyone turn their heads. She had Dad's dark hair and Mom's green eyes, and by 17, she looked like she belonged on a magazine cover. Boys fell all over themselves trying to get her attention. Girls wanted to be her friend. Teachers loved her. I was proud of her. I really was. Even when people would look at us together and ask if we were really sisters, like they couldn't quite believe the pretty one and the ordinary one shared DNA. Even when family gatherings turned into the Natalie show, with relatives fawning over her latest accomplishment while barely remembering to ask how I was doing. Even when Dad's eyes actually lit up when she walked in the room. Something they never did for me anymore. Because that's what you do when you love someone, right? You celebrate their shine even when you're standing in their shadow. I paid for Natalie's college. She got into a prestigious university 3 hours away. Good school, great program, terrible financial aid package. Dad's income was too high for need-based aid, but he wasn't actually contributing anything. He'd rebuilt his life around golf and a girlfriend I'd met twice. So I took out loans in my name, worked my way up at the marketing firm, and sent Natalie money every month for rent and expenses. She studied public relations and communications. She joined a sorority, made 100 friends, posted endless photos of parties and formals and beach trips. I double-checked the payment schedule to make sure her tuition was covered for the next semester. By the time Natalie graduated, I'd invested over $100,000 in her future, between the loans I'd taken, the monthly payments, the emergencies that always seemed to come up right before I could save anything for myself. But she had a degree. She had opportunities. She had a life that wasn't overshadowed by loss and responsibility. And I had Jake. I met him at a marketing conference 2 years ago. He was an engineer at a tech startup, attending the conference because his company needed help with their go-to-market strategy. We were both reaching for the same sad conference croissant at the breakfast buffet, laughed about it, and ended up talking for 3 hours. He was kind. He was stable. He didn't need me to be anything other than myself. Jake proposed on a beach in Malibu at sunset with a ring he'd saved for 6 months to buy. It wasn't huge or flashy, just a simple solitaire that caught the light perfectly. When he got down on one knee and asked me to marry him, I cried harder than I had since Mom died. Finally, someone was choosing me. Someone was making me their priority. We set the date for September 14th. A Saturday. I'd been planning it for 8 months. Every detail perfect. Every vendor confirmed. The venue was a gorgeous vineyard in Temecula with rolling hills and string lights and everything I'd ever dreamed of. The dress was custom made, fitted 3 times to get it exactly right. $12,000 I'd saved for 2 years to afford. It was ivory lace with a sweetheart neckline and a cathedral train. And when I tried it on for the final fitting, the seamstress actually teared up. I kept it at home in my closet, wrapped in a garment bag, tucked away like a secret. Sometimes I'd take it out just to look at it, to remind myself that this beautiful thing was real, that my wedding day was actually coming. Natalie had just graduated and moved back home while she looked for jobs in PR. She was living in her old bedroom, the bigger one, the one with better light, because I'd given her that room when she was 13 and decided I didn't need to move back in after she left for college. She'd been sweet about the wedding planning, offering to help with little things here and there. She even volunteered to be my maid of honor, though I'd already asked my best friend from work. "No worries," Natalie had said with that dazzling smile. "I'm just happy to be part of your special day, sis." Jake got along great with Natalie. Of course he did. Everyone got along with Natalie. He thought it was sweet how close we were, how I'd sacrificed so much for her. He'd bring takeout when he came over and make sure to get Natalie's favorite dishes. He'd ask about her job search, offer to look at her resume, connect her with people in his network. I thought it was nice. I thought it meant he valued family the way I did. 3 weeks before my wedding, my boss called me into her office. Big news. Our New York team needed help landing a major client, and they wanted me to fly out and lead the pitch. It was a huge opportunity, the kind of project that could mean a promotion, maybe even a VP title. The catch? It was a 2-week intensive. I'd have to leave in 3 days, and I wouldn't be back until 5 days before the wedding. "I can't," I told her immediately. "My wedding is in 3 weeks. There's too much to finalize." "Claire, you've been planning this wedding for 8 months. Everything's handled. And Jake can take care of anything that comes up, right? This client represents a potential $50 million contract. I need you on this." I called Jake that night, anxious. "I don't know. What if something goes wrong? What if vendors need decisions?" "Babe, it's fine," he assured me. "I've got the timeline. I know all the vendors. And Natalie offered to help if I need anything. You should take this opportunity. We'll be fine for 2 weeks." Natalie nodded enthusiastically from the couch. "I'll totally help. This is huge for your career, Claire. You can't say no." I wavered. The practical part of me, the part that had supported my family for over a decade, knew this was too big to turn down. VP at 32? That was the kind of success I'd dreamed about back when I thought I'd go to UCLA. "Okay," I agreed. "But promise me you'll call if anything comes up, anything at all." Jake kissed my forehead. "I promise. Now go kill it in New York." The morning I left for the airport, I hugged Natalie tight. "Thank you for being willing to help Jake," I told her. "I know wedding stuff isn't exactly exciting." "Are you kidding? It's your wedding." "I'm honored." She squeezed me back. "Don't worry about anything here. Just focus on landing that client." I gave Jake the deposit for the final venue payment, $2,500 in cash, because they required it 2 weeks before the event. I showed him the spreadsheet with all the vendor contact information, walked him through the timeline one more time, and tried to ignore the weird flutter in my stomach that felt like premonition. "I love you," I told him at the airport drop-off. "I love you too. I'll text you tonight." The New York project was intense. 14-hour days, high-stakes presentations, client dinners that lasted until midnight. I texted Jake every night, but his responses got shorter, slower. When I called, he sounded distracted. He assured me everything was fine, just busy with work himself. I asked about the venue deposit. "Did you pay it?" "Yeah, all taken care of." "And the florist confirmed the bouquet changes?" "Yep, Natalie helped me call them. It's handled, babe." Something felt off, but I was 3,000 miles away, drowning in market analysis and pitch decks. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself this was just pre-wedding anxiety mixed with work stress. On day 12, I got a notification on my phone. Someone had tagged me in a photo on Instagram. I opened it during a coffee break. The photo was from inside a venue. My venue. The string lights I'd chosen, the vintage bar I'd picked out, the sweetheart table I'd agonized over. But it wasn't a setup photo. It was a wedding in progress. And the bride was my sister. I zoomed in, my hands shaking so hard I almost dropped my phone. The dress. She was wearing my dress. The $12,000 custom gown that had been hanging in my closet 2 weeks ago. The veil with the delicate lace edge that perfectly matched the dress train. The bouquet, white roses and peonies, exactly what I'd ordered. The groom was Jake. They were cutting a cake. My cake, 3 tiers with champagne buttercream and fresh flowers cascading down the sides. Behind them, I could see familiar faces. Jake's parents, his brother, my dad, cousins, friends, co-workers, every single person who had been invited to my wedding. The caption read, "Congratulations to the beautiful bride and groom, Natalie and Jake forever." I stared at that photo for 5 minutes, waiting for it to make sense, waiting for my brain to find the reasonable explanation. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe it was a surprise vow renewal for someone else at the same venue. Maybe I was hallucinating from sleep deprivation. I scrolled through the tags, 15 more photos. Natalie getting her makeup done in a robe that said bride. Jake in his tuxedo, the same tuxedo he'd rented for our wedding, kissing Natalie's hand. The 2 of them at the altar, the first dance, champagne toasts. Someone had live-streamed the ceremony. The video was still up on Facebook. I clicked it with trembling fingers. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to celebrate the union of Natalie Martinez and Jake Morrison. I ran to the bathroom and threw up. My boss found me 20 minutes later, still sitting on the floor with my phone in my hands, tears streaming down my face. "Claire, what happened?" I couldn't speak. I just held up my phone and showed her the photos. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Oh, Claire, I'm so sorry." I was on a flight home 4 hours later. I didn't pack. I didn't check out of the hotel properly. I just grabbed my laptop bag and went straight to the airport. My boss had her assistant book me on the next available flight and told me to take all the time I needed. The flight was 5.5 hours of hell. I couldn't sleep, couldn't think, couldn't process. I kept pulling up those photos, trying to find the detail that would prove this wasn't real. But every time I looked, it was still my sister in my dress, marrying my fiancé in the venue I'd chosen, with the flowers I'd picked out in front of every person I loved. I landed at LAX at 11 p.m. I took an Uber straight to the venue. I didn't even know why. Maybe to confirm it had really happened. Maybe because I needed to see it with my own eyes. The parking lot was nearly empty. A few catering vans were still there, staff cleaning up. I walked around to the garden area where the ceremony had taken place. The chairs were being folded and stacked. The flower arrangements were wilting in the California heat. A torn piece of tulle, from my veil, was caught on a rosebush. "Excuse me, miss?" A security guard approached. "The event is over. Are you with the party?" My voice cracked. This was supposed to be my wedding. His expression shifted from professional to deeply uncomfortable. "I'm sorry, I don't—" "That bride? She's my sister. That groom was my fiancé. This was my venue, my date, my everything." He looked at me like I might be crazy. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to—" "Claire?" I turned. Natalie stood in the doorway of the venue's bridal suite, still wearing my wedding dress. Her makeup was smudged from crying or laughing or both. She looked beautiful. She looked radiant. She looked at me, and she smiled. Not a guilty smile. Not an apologetic smile. A satisfied smile. "Oh, Claire," she said, walking toward me with slow, deliberate steps. "You're back early." I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't do anything but stare at her wearing my dress. "I can explain," she continued, though her tone suggested she didn't think she needed to. "Jake and I fell in love. Real love. Not the settling for comfortable kind. Actual, passionate, can't live without each other love. And we realized we couldn't wait. We couldn't watch you marry him when we both knew it was wrong." "You stole my wedding," I whispered. "I didn't steal it. We just moved up the timeline. I mean, everything was already paid for and planned. It seemed wasteful to cancel it all. She shrugged, like she was explaining why she'd borrowed a sweater without asking. And honestly, Claire, you're better off. You and Jake weren't passionate. You were like roommates who occasionally kissed. He needs someone who can match his energy. The security guard had quietly retreated, probably calling someone about the situation. "Where's Jake?" I managed to ask. "Inside, talking to his parents. They're still here." Natalie tilted her head. "You can see him if you want, but I don't think it's a good idea. It'll just make everything awkward." "Awkward," I repeated numbly. "Look, I know you're upset right now, but you'll understand eventually. This is better for everyone." She smoothed down the front of the dress, my dress. "You can watch from the sidelines if you want. You're good at that, right? You've always been good at being in the background While you what?" A voice cut through the darkness, deep, authoritative, male. "While you take credit for everything your sister built?" We both turned. A man stood at the edge of the parking lot, near a black Mercedes sedan. Tall, probably late 30s, wearing a suit that looked like it cost more than my car. Dark hair, strong jawline, the kind of presence that made you stand up straighter automatically. He walked toward us with the confidence of someone who owned every room he entered. Natalie's smile faltered. "Can we help you?" The man ignored her. He looked directly at me, and his expression softened just slightly. "Claire Martinez?" he asked. I nodded, too stunned to speak. He extended his hand. "I'm Ethan Ward. I believe we had a meeting scheduled today, but it seems you have more pressing matters." His eyes flicked to Natalie, then back to me. "May I?" I took his hand automatically. His grip was warm, steady. "Mr. Ward?" Natalie stepped forward, suddenly interested. "As in Ward Enterprises?" "That's correct." His tone was polite, but cold. He still hadn't looked at her directly. "Ward Enterprises." Even through my shock, I recognized the name. They were one of the biggest tech companies on the West Coast. The client we'd been pitching in New York was hoping for a partnership with them. "I don't understand," I said. "What are you doing here?" "I've been trying to reach you for the past 6 hours. Your assistant mentioned you'd had a family emergency and flew home." He glanced around the venue. "I wanted to make sure you were all right, though I see now that emergency might be an understatement." Natalie laughed nervously. "This is just a family situation. Nothing that concerns—" "I'd like to speak with Ms. Martinez privately," Ethan interrupted smoothly. "Would you excuse us?" It wasn't a request. Natalie opened her mouth, closed it, then forced a smile. "Of course. Claire, we can talk later, when you're calmer." She turned and walked back into the venue, the train of my dress dragging behind her. The moment she was gone, I felt my knees buckle. Ethan caught my arm, steadying me. "Easy. When's the last time you ate?" I don't remember." "Come on." He guided me toward his car. "Let's get you somewhere you can sit down properly." I should have questioned it. Should have asked why the CEO of a major tech company was at my not wedding at 11:30 at night. But I was running on shock and exhaustion and heartbreak, and frankly, anywhere was better than standing in that parking lot watching my sister parade around in my dress. Ethan opened the passenger door of his Mercedes. The interior smelled like leather and subtle cologne. I sank into the seat and closed my eyes. "Where do you live?" he asked as he started the car. I gave him my address. It was 40 minutes away, but he just nodded and pulled out of the parking lot. We drove in silence for the first 10 minutes. I stared out the window, watching the lights of the highway blur past, trying to make my brain accept what had just happened. "How did you know?" I finally asked. "About the wedding. About this." Ethan was quiet for a moment. "I have a policy of thoroughly vetting anyone I consider for key positions in my company. When we started discussing bringing you on for the Ward Tech merger project, I looked into your background. Professional accomplishments, obviously, but also personal stability, reliability, character. You investigated me. I did my due diligence," he corrected gently. "And in the process, I learned about your family, your sister, your fiancé. About 2 weeks ago, one of my team members, who happens to know someone in your sister's social circle, mentioned some concerning rumors. That your sister and fiancé were growing inappropriately close. That they'd been seen together frequently while you were out of town." My stomach churned. And you didn't tell me? I wasn't certain it was my place, and I wasn't certain the rumors were true. He glanced at me briefly before returning his eyes to the road. But I kept monitoring the situation. When I saw the wedding announcement posted publicly, using your venue, your date, your vendors, I knew what had happened. I tried to reach you, but you were already on a flight home. So you came to… what? Make sure I was okay? I couldn't keep the bitterness out of my voice. That's above and beyond for due diligence. Perhaps. He said it like he didn't feel the need to justify himself. But I've built my company on the principle that character matters more than credentials. And your character, Ms. Martinez, is extraordinary. Someone who sacrifices as much as you have for family, who builds a career from nothing while supporting others. That's someone worth knowing. I didn't know what to say to that. Also, he added with the faintest hint of a smile, I have 2 younger sisters myself. If anyone ever treated either of them the way your sister treated you, I'd want someone to show up. Something about that simple statement made my throat tight. I turned back to the window so he wouldn't see me crying again. When we pulled up outside my apartment building, Ethan put the car in park but didn't turn off the engine. What happens now? I asked. Do I go up there and find more of my things missing? Do I call Jake and demand an explanation? Do I… My voice broke. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. You're supposed to rest, Ethan said firmly. Tonight you sleep. Tomorrow you start figuring out what you want your life to look like going forward, and when you're ready, you call me. He pulled a business card from his jacket pocket and handed it to me. I looked at the card. Plain white, black text. Ethan Ward, Chief Executive Officer, Ward Enterprises. A phone number. An email. Why would I call you? Because that project in New York? You killed it. The client signed this afternoon. $50 million contract. He met my eyes. And because I'm offering you a position, Vice President of Strategic Development. You'd be heading the entire Ward Tech merger integration. Salary is $250,000 base, plus equity and performance bonuses. I stared at him. You're offering me a job? Now? I'm offering you an opportunity. Take the weekend. Process what happened. Then decide if you want to build something bigger than what you've lost. He opened his door and came around to open mine, like he was afraid I might be too tired to manage it myself. Get some sleep, Claire. Things will look different in the morning. I climbed out of the car, clutching his business card in one hand. Ethan waited until I'd unlocked the building door and stepped inside before he drove away. My apartment was exactly as I'd left it 2 weeks ago. Clean, organized, quiet. I walked to my bedroom and opened my closet. The space where my wedding dress had hung was empty, just a bare wooden hanger. I pulled out my phone and looked at the photos again. Natalie and Jake, radiant and happy. My dress, my flowers, my everything. Then I looked at Ethan Ward's business card. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time in my life, I had the feeling that maybe, just maybe, being invisible was about to stop being my default setting. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on my couch, staring at Ethan Ward's business card until the numbers blurred together. Vice President of Strategic Development, $250,000. It was more money than I'd ever imagined making, the kind of position I'd dreamed about back when I still had dreams that belonged to me alone. By the time the sun came up, I'd made my decision. I called Ethan at 8 a.m., half expecting to get his voicemail. He answered on the second ring. Ms. Martinez, I'm glad you called. I accept, I said. No preamble, no negotiation. When do I start? There was a pause, then I heard what might have been satisfaction in his voice. Monday. I'll have HR send over the paperwork today. Welcome to Ward Enterprises, Claire. I spent the weekend in a strange fog, moving through the motions of dismantling my old life. I changed the locks on my apartment. Jake had a key, and I didn't want any surprise visits. I blocked both Jake and Natalie on every platform I could think of. I didn't read the texts that had been flooding my phone, didn't listen to the voicemails. I just deleted them all and turned off notifications. My dad called on Sunday. I let it go to voicemail, then listened to his message with my finger hovering over the delete button. Claire, honey, I know you're upset, But Natalie's young. She made a mistake. These things happen. Jake's a good man. He got confused. Can we talk about this? As a family? I deleted it. There was nothing to discuss. Monday morning, I walked into Ward Enterprises headquarters in downtown Los Angeles wearing the most expensive suit I owned and carrying a leather portfolio I'd bought specifically for the occasion. The building was glass and steel, 40 stories of corporate success. The lobby alone probably cost more than my entire apartment building. Ethan met me personally. He was in a navy suit, no tie, looking every bit the powerful CEO. When he saw me, something in his expression shifted, like he was relieved I'd actually shown up. "Ready?" he asked. "Ready." He took me to the executive floor and introduced me to what felt like 100 people. Department heads, project managers, senior strategists. Everyone was professional and welcoming, but I could see the curiosity in their eyes. Who was this woman their CEO had personally recruited? My office was corner-positioned with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. There was a mahogany desk, ergonomic chair, a couch for meetings. On the desk was a welcome packet and a handwritten note from Ethan. "You earned this. Now show them why." The Ward Tech merger was complex, integrating two major tech companies with different cultures, systems, and goals. My job was to create the strategy that would make it seamless. I threw myself into it completely, working 12-hour days, reviewing thousands of pages of documentation, conducting interviews with key personnel from both companies. It was exactly what I needed. Every hour I spent analyzing market positioning or negotiating integration timelines was an hour I didn't spend thinking about Natalie wearing my dress, or Jake kissing her at an altar that should have been mine. 3 weeks into the job, I was in my office reviewing financial projections when my assistant buzzed. "Ms. Martinez, there's a Jake Morrison here to see you. He doesn't have an appointment, but he says it's urgent." My hands stilled on the keyboard. "Tell security to escort him out." "Are you sure? He's pretty insistent." "I'm sure." 10 minutes later, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered out of habit. "Claire, please." Jake's voice was rough, desperate. "I just need 5 minutes. Just let me explain." "Explain what? Exactly? How you fell in love with my sister while I was working to build our future? How you used my money to marry her at my venue? I think I understand the situation pretty clearly." "It wasn't like that. I didn't plan this. It just happened." "Things like this don't just happen, Jake. They're choices. You chose her. You chose to lie to me for weeks. You chose to let me fly across the country thinking I still had a wedding to come home to." My voice was steady, cold. "You made your choice. Now live with it." "Claire, I still care about you." "Don't." The word came out sharp. "Don't you dare tell me you care about me. If you cared, you would have had the decency to tell me the truth before you married my sister in my dress." He was quiet for a long moment. "I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I'm sorry." "I hope you are. I hope you both are. But your apology doesn't change anything. Goodbye, Jake." I hung up and blocked the number. That evening, Ethan stopped by my office. Most of the floor had cleared out, but I was still working, reviewing integration protocols for the 3rd time. "You're going to burn out at this pace," he said from my doorway. I looked up. "I'm fine." "You're excellent," he corrected. "But even excellent people need to eat dinner. Have you eaten today?" I tried to remember. Breakfast had been coffee. Lunch had been more coffee. "I'll take that as a no. Come on." He gestured toward the elevator. "There's a Thai place downstairs that stays open late. Let me buy you pad Thai before you collapse at your desk." I wanted to say no, to maintain professional boundaries, but my stomach chose that moment to growl audibly. Ethan smiled. "That's what I thought." The restaurant was small, tucked into the ground floor of our building. We sat in a booth near the back, and Ethan ordered for both of us, pad Thai for me, drunken noodles for him, spring rolls to share. "Your ex-fiancé came by today," I said after the food arrived. "Security told me after they escorted him out." Ethan's expression darkened. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine. He called me too, wanted to explain." I stabbed a piece of chicken with more force than necessary. As if there's an explanation that makes it okay. There isn't. Ethan was quiet for a moment, then added, "For what it's worth, I've had my team monitoring social media. Your sister and Jake's marriage announcement got significant attention. Not all of it positive." I looked up. "What do you mean?" People started asking questions. How it was possible they got married so quickly, whether you knew. Someone found your wedding registry. It was still active, with your name and Jake's, dated for the same day. The internet detectives connected the dots pretty quickly. Something cold settled in my chest. What are people saying? That your sister is a homewrecker, that Jake is a cheater, that they stole your wedding. He met my eyes. The truth, basically. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I just felt tired. I didn't want this to be public. I know, but maybe it's not the worst thing. Sometimes the truth protects you better than silence. Over the next few weeks, I watched from a distance as Natalie and Jake's perfect wedding announcement turned into a social media nightmare. Former friends commented asking what really happened. Mutual acquaintances unfollowed them. Someone created a thread on Reddit detailing the entire situation, complete with screenshots of the wedding photos next to my original wedding registry. Jake's LinkedIn suddenly showed he was seeking new opportunities. I later learned his company had quietly let him go. Something about culture fit and professional judgment. The job offer from Ward Enterprises that he'd applied for months ago? Officially rejected with a curt email from HR. Natalie's situation was worse. She'd been close to landing a position at a prominent PR firm until they Googled her name and found the scandal. PR companies don't hire people with reputation problems. She went from posting daily on Instagram to going completely silent on social media. My phone kept buzzing with calls from family members, aunts, uncles, cousins I hadn't heard from in years, all suddenly very concerned about family unity and forgiveness. I ignored most of them. The few I answered, I kept it simple. I need space. Please respect that. Dad called every few days. I never picked up. His voicemails evolved from, "Let's talk about this," to, "Natalie is really struggling," to, "You need to be the bigger person here." The bigger person. Like I hadn't been the bigger person my entire life. 4 months into my new position, Ethan invited me to a company gala. "It's a fundraiser for STEM education," he explained. "Mostly networking, some speeches, decent food. You should come. The board will be there, and it's good for them to see you in a social context." I almost said no. I'd been avoiding anything that felt remotely social. But this was work adjacent, and I was still proving myself. "All right, I'll be there." The gala was at a hotel in Beverly Hills, one of those places where the chandeliers probably cost more than most people's houses. I wore a navy cocktail dress I'd bought specifically for the occasion and felt underdressed the moment I walked in. Ethan found me within 5 minutes. He was in a tuxedo, looking like he'd stepped out of a magazine spread, and when he saw me, his expression shifted into something I couldn't quite read. "You look beautiful," he said simply. "You look like James Bond," I replied, trying to keep it light. He laughed and offered his arm. "Come on, I'll introduce you to the board." The next 2 hours were a blur of handshakes, small talk, and champagne I barely touched. Board members asked about the merger integration. I gave them confident updates, cited specific metrics, demonstrated I knew exactly what I was doing. I felt Ethan watching me throughout, something like pride in his eyes. When dinner was served, I found myself seated next to him at a table with several board members and their spouses. The conversation flowed easily. Technology trends, market predictions, a surprising amount of discussion about the best restaurants in LA. "So, Ms. Martinez," one of the board members' wives asked, "how are you adjusting to life at Ward Enterprises? Ethan speaks very highly of you." "It's been an incredible opportunity," I said honestly. "The work is challenging in the best way." "And outside of work? Are you settling into LA well?" It was polite small talk, but something about the question made my carefully constructed walls crack slightly. "I'm figuring it out," I said. "I've been here my whole life, actually. But sometimes you need to rebuild your life in a familiar place, you know?" Ethan's hand found mine under the table just for a moment. A brief squeeze of support, then gone. But I felt it long after. Later, After the speeches and the networking, Ethan and I stood on the hotel terrace overlooking the city. The party continued inside, but out here it was quiet, just the sound of distant traffic and the cool night air. "Thank you," I said, "for tonight, for the job, for showing up at the venue that night, for all of it." "You don't need to thank me. You earned every opportunity you have. But you gave me the chance when I needed it most." I turned to look at him. "Why? Really, you could have any strategist in the country. Why me?" Ethan was quiet for a long moment, looking out at the lights of Los Angeles spread below us. "Do you remember 3 months ago when we pitched the Ward Tech merger to their board?" I nodded. That had been my first major presentation, and I'd been terrified. "You were brilliant. But more than that, you were real. When one of their board members tried to lowball the integration budget, you didn't back down. You showed him exactly why cutting corners would cost them more in the long run. You were direct, honest, and you didn't apologize for being right." He looked at me then. "That's who you are, Claire. Someone who doesn't need to be the loudest person in the room because you're too busy being the smartest." Something shifted between us in that moment. The professional boundary we'd carefully maintained, the appropriate distance between CEO and VP, it blurred into something more complicated. "Ethan," I started, but I didn't know how to finish. "I know," he said quietly. "This is complicated. You've just come out of a serious relationship. I'm your boss. The timing is terrible." "The timing is terrible," I agreed. "But when the timing is better," he continued, "I'd like to take you to dinner, not as your boss, not networking, just dinner." My heart did something complicated in my chest. "When the timing is better," I echoed. "I'd like that." We stood there for another moment, not touching, just existing in the possibility of something that might happen when I was ready for it to happen. 6 months into my position at Ward Enterprises, everything changed again. Jake showed up at my apartment building on a Saturday morning. I was coming back from a run when I saw him sitting on the front steps, looking haggard and exhausted. "What are you doing here?" I asked, not slowing down. He stood quickly. "Claire, please, I need to talk to you." "We have nothing to discuss." "Natalie's pregnant." I stopped walking, turned slowly. "What?" "She's pregnant. 3 months. We didn't plan it, but—" He ran a hand through his hair. "Everything's falling apart. She lost another job offer. I'm working contract positions because no one wants to hire me full-time. We can't afford the apartment, and my parents are barely speaking to me." I stared at him, feeling absolutely nothing. "And you're telling me this because—" "Because I need you to forgive us. I need you to tell your dad it's okay, so he'll help us. He won't give us any money until you say it's fine." Jake's voice cracked. "Please, Claire, we're drowning here." "You're drowning," I repeated slowly. "And you want me to throw you a life raft. I know I don't deserve it." "You're right. You don't." I stepped around him, heading for the door. "You and Natalie made your choices. You wanted each other so badly you didn't care who you hurt to get there. So congratulations. You got exactly what you wanted. Now deal with the consequences." "Claire." I turned back one last time. "I gave everything for my family, my education, my savings, my future. I gave it all. And when it was finally my turn to have something for myself, you took it, both of you." My voice was steady, calm. "I don't hate you, Jake, but I don't owe you forgiveness, and I definitely don't owe you rescue. You're on your own now, both of you." I went inside and didn't look back. That night, my dad called. I answered this time. "Claire, we need to talk about Natalie." "No, we don't." "She's your sister. She's pregnant and struggling, and you're just going to abandon her?" "I'm going to let her handle her own life," I corrected. "The way I've been handling mine since I was 16. "That's not fair." "Fair?" I laughed, and it sounded bitter even to my own ears. "Dad, I paid for her entire college education. I sacrificed my scholarship, my opportunities, my life to make sure she had everything she needed, and she thanked me by stealing my wedding. So no, I'm not going to bail her out now. You want to help her? Help her. But don't ask me to fund her life anymore." "When did you become so cold?" The question hit harder than it should have. I'm not cold, Dad. I'm just done being everyone's safety net. Done being invisible while Natalie gets everything. Done sacrificing my happiness for people who don't appreciate it. My voice softened slightly. I love you, but I need you to respect my boundaries. If you can't do that, then we can't have a relationship right now. He was quiet for a long moment. I don't know how to fix this. Then don't. Just let me live my life. Please. He hung up without saying goodbye. 2 weeks later, I received a baby shower invitation in the mail. Natalie's baby shower. The invitation was pink and cream, decorated with little elephants, and addressed to Claire Martinez and guest. I stared at it for a full minute before I realized I was laughing. The audacity was almost impressive. I sent a gift, a high-end baby monitor, a car seat, a collection of organic onesies. Everything expensive, everything practical, everything a new parent would need. I included a card that read, "Wishing you all the best in this new chapter. I hope you find the happiness you were looking for. Claire." I didn't attend the shower. I didn't call. I just sent the gifts and moved on. Because that's what moving on looked like for me now. Not bitterness, not revenge, just distance. Just choosing myself for once. 8 months after the non-wedding, Ethan asked me to dinner. Not a business dinner, not networking, just dinner. We went to a small Italian restaurant in Santa Monica, the kind of place where the owner knows everyone's name and the pasta is made fresh daily. It was intimate, quiet, perfect. I've been wanting to do this for a while, Ethan admitted over wine. Ask you out properly. Why didn't you? Because you needed time. And because I never want you to feel like your position at Ward Enterprises is conditional on anything other than your talent. So, and now? Now you're objectively excellent at your job. The merger integration is ahead of schedule and under budget. The board is talking about your next project. And He paused, choosing words carefully. I'd really like to see if this thing between us is as real as it feels. I reached across the table and took his hand. It is. It's real. We dated slowly, carefully. Ethan respected every boundary I set, never pushed for more than I was ready to give. He met me where I was, someone healing, someone rebuilding, someone learning how to choose herself. 6 months later, he proposed. Not on a beach at sunset, but in my office after a particularly brutal 14-hour day, when I was exhausted and my hair was falling out of its bun and I probably had coffee stains on my shirt. "Marry me," he said, sitting across from my desk like he was proposing a merger instead of a marriage. I laughed. "That's your proposal? I have a ring, I have a speech. But the truth is, I love you, and I don't want to wait for a perfect moment because every moment with you is already perfect enough." He pulled out a small box. "So, yes, that's my proposal. Marry me, Claire. Build a life with me. Let me spend the rest of my life making sure you know how valued you are." I said yes. Our wedding was small, intimate, just the people who actually mattered, close friends, Ethan's family, a few colleagues. My dad came and we had a long conversation beforehand about boundaries and respect and what our relationship could look like going forward. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. Natalie wasn't invited. I sent her a note a week before the wedding, not to be cruel, just to be clear. "I'm getting married. This is my day, and I need it to be about my future, not our past. I wish you well, but from a distance." She sent back a single text. "I understand. Congratulations." That was it. No drama, no confrontation, just acceptance. The wedding itself was everything I'd dreamed of. A small vineyard in Napa Valley, string lights under the stars, a dress even more beautiful than the one I'd lost. But more than any of that, it was mine, truly mine. When I walked down the aisle, I wasn't thinking about what I'd lost. I was thinking about everything I'd gained. A career I loved, a partner who valued me, a life I'd chosen instead of one I'd defaulted into. Ethan cried when he saw me. Real tears, unashamed, and when I reached the altar, he whispered, "You're the strongest person I know." "I learned the hard way," I whispered back. "I'm grateful for everything that led you to me, even the hard parts." We said our vows. Promises about partnership, respect, choosing each other every day. When we kissed, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: peace. At the reception, my dad pulled me aside. "I'm proud of you," he said, "for building this life, for setting boundaries, for—" his voice caught, "for still being willing to let me be here. You're my dad. I love you, but things are different now." "I know, and that's okay." He hugged me tight. "You deserve this happiness, Claire Bear." It was the first time he'd called me that since Mom died. A year after my wedding to Ethan, I got an unexpected message on LinkedIn from Natalie. "I saw your promotion announcement, VP to Chief Strategy Officer. That's incredible. I'm proud of you, even if I don't have the right to say that anymore. I hope you're happy. You deserve to be." I stared at the message for a long time, my finger hovering over the delete button, but instead, I wrote back, "Thank you. I hope you're finding your way too. Take care of yourself and your baby." She replied almost immediately, "I'm trying. We both are. I know I can't fix what I did, but I want you to know I see it now. How much you gave me, how little I appreciated it. I'm sorry. I'll probably always be sorry." I read her message twice, then closed LinkedIn. Forgiveness wasn't about her anymore. It was about me choosing not to carry the weight of what she'd done. I deleted the message thread, not out of anger, but out of peace. That evening, I came home to find Ethan cooking dinner in our kitchen. Our home, with its wall of windows overlooking the city, its art we'd chosen together, its life we'd built from scratch. "Good day?" he asked, pulling me into a kiss. "Good day," I confirmed. Natalie messaged me. His expression shifted slightly. "And?" "And I'm okay. Actually okay." I wrapped my arms around his waist. "I spent so long being the person everyone needed me to be, but I'm not that person anymore." "No," Ethan agreed, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. "Now you're the person you needed you to be." That night, lying in bed with Ethan's arm around me, I thought about everything that had led me here. The sacrifice, the betrayal, the moment standing in that parking lot watching my sister parade around in my dress, the anger, the grief, the slow process of rebuilding. I thought about Jake and Natalie, whether they were happy, whether they regretted their choices, whether their baby had my dad's eyes or my mom's smile. But mostly, I thought about this. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is also the thing that sets you free. I didn't need my old life back. I didn't need Natalie's apology or Jake's regret. I just needed this. The sound of Ethan breathing beside me, the career I'd built through my own merit, the family I'd chosen instead of the one I'd been given. They'd thought I would watch from the sidelines forever. They'd been wrong. I wasn't in the background anymore. I was center stage in my own life, and I wasn't giving that up for anyone. Not ever again.